A very good afternoon to you all. Please allow me to say all protocol observed. My name is Babuluki Putero, standing in for the Acting Chief Executive Officer of Botswana Railways, who couldn't make it. Just in brief, Botswana as a country is fully landlocked. Therefore, integration in terms of rail is probably more important to us than anyone else. You'll remember that in the western side, in the southern side, we have South Africa. We have in the western side, Namibia. To the north, there is Zambia. Still on the northeastern side, there is Zimbabwe. So we are totally landlocked. And having said that, we are making strides in developing some projects that will connect us to all our neighboring countries. In the western side, we're talking the Trans-Kalahari Railway line. We have a connection with South Africa. We are certainly looking at the second one that Rele talked about earlier, being Mamabula to Lephalale. In the northern side, we have already made some strides. We've built a rail and road bridge over the Chobe River, about 923 meters. And leading to that will be a railway line that will be around 400 kilometers from the central part to that place. So it's very important to us. And without talking a lot, my panel has been queued in, and I'll go straight into the discussions. Thank you very much. Mr. Kwazi, let me start with you, please. SARA and the Port Management Association of Eastern and Southern Africa have signed a cooperation memorandum of understanding for information exchange for rail port interface improvements. How will you utilize this, this established cooperation platform for the business?
Thanks for the question. Logistics supply chain is a team sport. And I think with the signing of that memorandum of understanding is actually acknowledging that we cannot continue operating in silos. It becomes important that there is integration from the seaport point of view as well as in the corridors within the SADC and also including some of the eastern corridors. So collaboration becomes very important because right now, what you are seeing happening, especially in the seaport, the vessel sizes are actually increasing. The number of calls in most of the seaports are actually reducing. What it means is that the connectivity to the hinterland and the connectivity to some of the dry ports won't be solved by one association or one area. There has to be collaboration throughout the corridors. And what we have seen as well recently, and I think it's a discussion that has been happening this morning, the issue of road versus rail. And I think right now, logistics supply chain is under pressure, globally, regionally, and locally. So what it means is we cannot continue talking about road versus rail. We need to talk about road working with rail, because with intermodalism, we then will be able to unlock the gridlock or the issues that you are experiencing within our logistic supply chain.
Thank you very much for that. Bruno, let me come to you, please. We are talking technology. What technologies are you employing in this area to enable efficiency and increase the rail port services interface?
First of all, one of the challenges which needs to be addressed is the fact that, which we've been speaking about, is the fact that we are developing in silos still. The driver of the port development, the drivers are the types of ships that are calling at those ports, the types of ships that are moving around. If they see bigger ships, they also develop the ports in order to handle those big ships. What they are not doing is looking at the offtake. So you have the port, which has deepened its berth, but on the other side, there is no development that is going to support that offtake. We have seen this, for example, in Tanzania, at Dar es Salaam. Excellent work is going on in developing the port of Dar es Salaam. A lot of work is going on. But on the other side, there is a big constraint because the railways cannot handle the amount of material that is coming out of the ports because it is lagging behind. It was not part of the plan for the ports. So in terms of us engaging with the with the trackers, for example, the trackers will move as much as possible for as long a distance as they want to. The only time that the trackers are going to move with us, between this competition that you spoke about, is that the trackers will only do that if they can earn as much money as when they are cooperating with us. If the short distances that they are moving in the destination and origin areas is not giving them as much revenue as when they are doing the long distances, it will be difficult to get them to be motivated to work with the railways. And because the trackers are generally private people, it will be difficult to motivate them to move otherwise. So perhaps this is one area where some kind of interventions politically might be required in order to look at the best logistics for the entire route, both from an economical point of view and also from an environmental point of view. Left as it is, it's very difficult to get the motivation of the trackers to be moving traffic only 10 or 15 kilometers, while they are not making as much money as they would in the long run. That's my contribution to this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. Coupled with technology, there certainly has to be other things that we are doing to make our corridors operate more effectively. And the loading and offloading of cargo on the SADC corridors is a noted logistical area requiring improvement. To you, Kolani, what is it that you are doing? Okay, to you, Kolani, how can we improve this problem that we see of loading and offloading cargo at our ports?
Thanks for the opportunity to engage on this interesting topic. Our presence at the port is quite an interesting one because before the cargo is loaded onto the vessel, we're probably the last participant in the entire corridor. So there is a tendency to have all eyes on MPDC as my colleagues, ourselves, and any other port operator for that matter in the SADC region. So it's imperative for us to ensure that technologically we're up there in terms of ensuring that we can handle the wagons efficiently and as quickly as possible. what I've learned from the rail authorities is that a turnaround time on a wagon is quite critical. And I was fascinated actually about a month ago where I engaged one of our customers and I had my Transnet colleagues there, and the theme was very simple. Train does not stop. So if you take that concept on the port side, if the port or terminal on the seaside or on the quayside is congested, is not moving, it blocks the entire corridor. So the duty for us as terminal operators, number one, is to make sure that we unlock the entire corridor by investing in the wagon facilities. As Green Road, we've been focusing on that quite a lot. I engaged with the CFM colleagues to ensure that we work very well in ensuring that. Failing which, we will incur massive demurrage from our rail authorities. Secondly, is to make sure that the footprint that we've got designed is utilized to its maximum capacity. As an example, in Matola, we know that the nameplate capacity is 7.3 million tons, but last year we did 8.2 million tons. That's testament to us really working hard at pumping the volumes through the facilities. And if we do that very well, we increase unit cost of the entire corridor. And we need to remind ourselves that when the customers evaluate the entire corridor, they look at the landed cost to the destination. So the FOP at the port is only part of the costing. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. To Gift, Mr. Gift, just a quick one. There's been a lot of talk with regard to establishing a pool for containers for use in the region. How feasible is the establishment of a SADC pool containers? And what benefits do you believe we stand to realize from such a pool?
Thank you for that question. Good afternoon, everyone. I believe that we did have these assets in the past as railways. If this can be revived, it can serve a very great purpose. The reason is because the shipping line containers do not cover the landside operations. And we have a mandate to stimulate and support sustainable intra-regional trade. So the benefits will be massive if you could revive that particular aspect of providing the regional containers. SARA, as an organization where it stands or it sits, can facilitate that particular acquisition and making available those particular resources. We also can use that to stimulate demand for railway services and support those customers that would want to move cargo within the region. There are customers that are available that need to use that particular service. As Eswatini Railways, we have embarked on a mission to provide containers for this particular service, and it has proven that it can actually work. The stimulation of demand for railway services starts from the miniature or the smaller sizes of operations. And if we have a pool to support this particular activity, it will be a bigger operation going forward. The railway corridor approach also incorporates these particular aspects. We need to support all sides of commodities, all sides of customers at all levels, either it's cross-border, international, or regional intra-trade. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Before I go to Christina, just one more time, Bruno. What intermodal solutions for reduction of transit times are you currently employing at Tazara? And which ones are you planning to introduce if they are any that might be introduced regionally to benefit the whole region?
I haven't quite gotten the question.
Okay. What intermodal solutions for reduction of transit times are you currently employing? And are there any that you are planning to introduce? If you can share with us, so we might be able to learn from you as well.
Currently, the intermodal solutions that are available, not necessarily regionally, are such that you want to be able to move one type of load from, say, the trucks being carried by the rail to a next destination, one type of intermodal system that you'd put in. You could also have an intermodal system whereby for passengers one can get a ticket that enables you to go from a bus onto the train and back onto a bus, etc. But these systems, unfortunately, in the region are not very applicable at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Just the last one to you, Christina. The competitiveness of SADC regional ports needs to result in reduced transport costs and in turn making SADC imports and exports cheaper. How are you working with railways to achieve this dream?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part? I didn't understood.
Okay, I was asking how are you working with railways to achieve this dream? Okay, the competitiveness of SADC regional ports needs to result in a reduced transport cost, and in turn making SADC imports and exports cheaper. So the question there is, how are you working with railways authorities to realize that?
Thank you. Well, I think before we go into railway as such, first we have to consider that has a corridors, the infrastructure behind these corridors, the inland corridors that facilitated this trade also have to be in good order. So we have to first talk about the investment, whether that is on rail or road. That is one of the first issues that we have to counter in terms of consider reducing the cost, because the cost of infrastructure is high. Automatically, the transport and logistics will also be high. In terms of Port of Maputo, we've been dealing with various rail operators. As you know, Maputo is fed by three main corridors: the Zimbabwean corridor, the Limpopo corridor that goes to Botswana, Zimbabwe up to Maputo, the Maputo corridor that serves through South Africa and Eswatini. We look to always have an alignment between the port and these three entities. One of our main partners for this is also CFM, has the main Mozambican rail operator, to which we have an aligned master plan in terms of the investments on the corridor, so that we can ensure that we do have the transport infrastructure that will facilitate the growth on the corridor and bring volumes, generate economies of scale, and reduce cost. This is one of the aspects. A part of this, consider that the corridor does not link just one country. The Port of Maputo also has quite a lot of work in terms of the cross-border, especially with the border of South Africa, which South Africa represents almost 70% of volumes that Maputo handles. We have to ensure that the clearance process through this border is easy, because at the end of the day, it's just not infrastructure. We need to make sure that the clearance happens and happens in a proper time and is reliable. So all these factors, they will contribute to cost reduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've just heard it for yourself, that brilliant insight from my panel here. Before I ask delegates to ask if there are any questions that they would like to ask, please kindly, may I request you to give my panel here a round of applause, please. Oh, I've skipped someone. I do have a question for you if I have skipped you. Did I skip you? No, you. Okay, I started with him. Yeah. Okay. Please, if you have any questions, this is the right time. Do you have any questions that you'd like to pose to the panel before I cue my panel? Hey. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Program Director, Chairperson of this session. And thank you to the panelists for the information that they are sharing with us. I think one thing certain in transport and logistics, we cannot remain fragmented if we are going to be providing a total solution, as we sometimes call about that. Now, the integration, the intermodal, and we know this is what happens. You know, traffic or cargo is handed over, it originates somewhere, maybe by road, handed over to rail, and vice versa, handed over to the ports. Now, sometimes you hear about port management systems. Then you have rail management systems. It's time that actually we realize that there's got to be joint planning. There's got to be joint execution, because it doesn't help for the railways to push cargo to the ports and cause congestion. Now, also in the reverse order, for the ports to actually receive cargo from the ships, and the cargo is not taken by rail. Now, it just goes to show that joint planning is very, very important, and I think it's high time that all the players, they operate the same platform of information. The ports have got to see the trains that are coming to the port and get ready what to do about those trains. Otherwise, the loads are going to remain on the trains, the wagons under load, and that is it's not a good situation, and it actually it lengthens the turnaround time. At the end of the day, we are not going to be serving our customers. We are going to increase costs of doing business, and therefore the economies in the region or Africa, inter-Africa trade is going to be affected. So I think there is a lot of work and that they need to do. And they've discussed all the issues. We just have got to see it now on the ground so that we get the benefits. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ngubane. That was a comment, and certainly a very valid comment by all means. Thank you so much for that. Can I have President and then Nyameka after President? Yes, Madam.
I have a question for the terminal operators on stage. And my question is as follows, because you are here and it's a South African Rail Association conference. What are you doing to ensure that you also maintain a correct balance of building the infrastructure required to facilitate train movements into your terminals versus just only simply looking at the truck movement? Because as terminal operators, you have the benefit of also enjoying, the benefit of the trucks visiting your terminals. But if we had to look overall in terms of what is the best thing for most of our countries, it is still rail. So my question is that what are you doing, and do you really believe that you're doing enough in making sure that you are also facilitating the better movement of trains into the terminals and ports? Thanks.
Okay, I believe you've heard the question. Yes, sir.
Okay, no, thanks. Thanks, President, for that question. I think from a terminal operator point of view, we want to receive cargo using rail because we have seen, I mean, let's take, for example, the Durban container terminal where the market share of rail has dropped significantly. But for us, as I've mentioned before, when we receive bigger ships that are going to discharge many containers, using road becomes inefficient for us because you lose plus minus 30% of unproductive moves when you're shuffling around containers wanting to pick that one container for that particular truck. What we want is when the ship is discharging containers, you do what you call mass rail evacuation to a near dock, off dock, or dry port terminal nearby. And I think in the Durban corridor, the conversation around Keto Ridge, which we are really part of in terms of that discussion, the near dock facility, which is your Bayhead terminal, which proved to be a significant game changer during the floods that we experienced in the Durban area, as well as opening up other facilities on the south of Durban as well as north of Durban to mass evacuate your containers and then use your trucks to start moving the containers from there. However, the biggest issue that we have, which I've already highlighted earlier on, we are fragmented. We allow truckers to plan on their own and optimize on their own. Rail wants to also optimize on their own. Going forward, if we really want to sort out the logistics supply chain quagmire that we have in Southern Africa, trucks, rail, they need to have the same conversation and then start deciding how we move cargo in a uniform manner. Because right now, the way we are doing it is not efficient, even for the terminal operators. We've seen a similar issue also in the park space, where in the park space, vessels are also becoming bigger. That is why in Richards Bay, you are having capsized vessels that we are working. But again, the biggest constraint has become the inbound logistics, whereby the number of trucks that are coming there can't even deliver sufficient cargo that is needed. As a result, we are starting to do what they call the law of diminishing returns. To say the more you add, you are starting now to actually affect your logistics supply chain. So definitely, we are doing something in terms of facilitating a rail, but it needs to be collaborative. We can't put truckers aside.
Thank you very much. Anyone who wants to add something?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to repeat myself. I think there's two aspects from the terminal's perspective in playing part in unlocking rail. So one is actually the investment. The investment is critical in the wagon handling area. So what you understand from the rail authorities is that when the train comes into the terminal, it should go back quickly, and the empties should be evacuated quickly. So the responsibility is then to the terminals to ensure that they respond by investing appropriately. So the second element, in addition to the investment, is really operational efficiencies. And when I talk about operational efficiencies, is how do we make sure that we are positioned for, as an example, if you get wagons with wet cargo, it poses challenges in terms of how we handle them. So our response is therefore to ensure that we've got ability to respond to those challenges. For instance, by implementing the excavators as opposed to sending it to the tippers. But the most important aspect of this for me is the regular interface with the rail authorities. What we do have in some of the corridors is what we call the JOCs. I know that at this stage, perhaps they're not as effective as they should be, but I think those forums can be used effectively to drive the agenda, understanding what are the developments happening on the rail side, and therefore how the ports can respond to that, so that ultimately the customer gets the solution that they desire to take the cargo to the destination. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me just take the very last question. Madam, you had a hand up.
Good afternoon. I just want to probably take on from what Baba Mkubane said about the fragmentation of the authorities as Gwazi, the word that you used. You have, for example, in Mozambique, sitting on stage, the authority and the operator. The question is there any plans to move beyond the master planning to actually the planning and the scheduling of the two authorities or of the two operators so that the system that goes through the gate is planned and seamless, which would take care of the booking that would happen in the gate, the offloading, whether the offloading comes from the trains or from the trucks, it starts from there. If we then move away from Mozambique and we take Transnet, where all the authorities, again, are sitting under one umbrella, which is Transnet, is there a plan to move beyond the thinking, where the planning and the scheduling is happening from the authority to the operator and the railway, so that the tracking system, where there are weight bridges, are not allowed to move closer to the port because that system is integrated? What are the plans and what are the action plans to get there and to move beyond the conversations?
Okay, madam, you can take it, please.
Thank you. Just to refer about the case of Mozambique, we actually have already moved out of the master plan to the implementation, and we actually went beyond the interaction between the authorities and the port operators. We do have a task team which incorporate not just the terminals, the port authority, the Ministry of Transport of Communication, road administration, customs, and other government services like immigration, because at the end of the day, it's not just about implementing investments, doing investments in the infrastructure, but is implementing day to day. One of the big experience we had with the COVID was the incorporation of technology. For example, because of COVID, lots of paperwork have been removed out of our system, from vessel arrival notification, rail arrival notification, truck arrival notification. Today, Port of Maputo has visibility to what is happening. For example, at kilometer 7, we know exactly which trucks are coming to Maputo that are sitting in kilometer 7. At kilometer 4, which is the road terminal on the Maputo side, there is a dry port in Resano Garcia, which also offers intermodal service. Cargo come via road and then is transported on the short leg to Maputo port. So this is working in progress, a part of the joint operation center that continues doing the alignment in terms of planning and monitoring of the day-to-day operations. Thank you for now.
Thank you very much. I believe you might want to add something. Yes, sir?
I just wanted to make a small comment. Here we are bemoaning the fact that we are working in silos and there is no interconnection. For example, the Southern African Rail Authority is only looking at us, the railways. There is probably another organization, Southern Africa Port Authority, somewhere. Now, if these two authorities are not talking to each other, these issues will continue. We have to find a way, either at authority level, where a common understanding of the total logistic challenge can be addressed. If we don't do that, like I said, most of the trackers are independent private companies out for profit, and they will continue pursuing that unless the bodies intervene to make the total logistics much more meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruno. I couldn't say it better. I think the key word there is let's work together. That's very, very important. And before we all walk down together with my panelists here, I believe they have done a very good work. And can I kindly ask you to give them a round of applause before they step down, please?